Good morning, all. Nice to see some familiar faces. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Dan Gasper, and I'd like to start today by thanking you for coming to a talk about non-alc at a booth show. So thank you. So why am I here in front of you all today? I've been working in spirits for 23 years now. I spent my early years working in corporate booze, sales, marketing, that kind of thing. And in 2008, I fell in love with startups, and I became a coach for founders, much before kind of a lot of people were getting into the space of being a founder-led business. I've now coached founders of drinks companies for about 15 years. I've coached about 100 different founder-led businesses. I co-founded a business called Distill Ventures in London back in 2013. And in 2021, I founded my company today, which is called the Ardent Company, based in Los Angeles, California. So my journey in non-alc started meeting a very, very nice gentleman who some of you will know. His name is Ben. He came into our office and complained that when he ordered a non-alc drink in some of London's finest cocktail bars, he was treated like a second-class citizen, his words. He was either served a sugary, revolting mocktail and was generally treated quite badly because he wasn't drinking. He wanted to change the way the world drinked. His brand, C-Lip, started that. But the game has changed. Last week, I walked into a bar in LA with a colleague, and I asked the bartender at a rowdy cocktail bar in Echo Park, and I spotted that the Ritual range was sat on the back bar, and I inquired what these products were, and she leant across the bar and told me, "Get with it, the world is changing." So thank you to David, to Ben, and to all the other pioneers who've founded non-alc businesses for choosing quite a difficult path, but a different path. So first, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, the last 12 months have seen some really quite big changes. So firstly, from a consumer perspective, yes, there were less people drinking in dry January, but more people are, including moderation in what they do. And, I think there's a few stats flying around, but whether it's 70 or 80% of non-alc drinkers also drink alcohol. The kind of non-alc consumer is moving from what was a very early adopter, and it's starting to kind of seed into that early majority. No longer if you ask for a great non-alc beverage, you met with that kind of second-class citizen piece. The world's waking up, which is great. And non-alc sales patterns are starting to mirror that of alcohol, which is also a really interesting piece. Consumers are now buying more non-alc products in OND than they do in those kind of dry January or dry July if you're from other parts of the world. So some really big, interesting changes going on in consumer habits. But also the channel focus is beginning to change as well. Non-alc stores continue to grow in kind of volume and quality, and there's some amazing ones out there. If you haven't been to New York's ones, I really recommend that you visit Spiritless. And if you've never been to a Boisson before, get in there. It's amazing. Soft Spirits in LA as well. Big shout out. While regular retail is waking up to that opportunity as well, you used to walk into most bigger stores and they would laugh at you about non-alc. They'd tell you there's the soda, but that's changing too. So there's lots of really exciting stuff going on in this last year. I think also for a lot of brand owners that there's been a realization of the limitations of D2C. There's a big opportunity to actually focus in the on-trade, which I think is really opening up, and to drive kind of trial, awareness, and discovery in the on-trade. So those are some of the big changes that I've noticed and we've noticed as a company in the last 12 months. So I guess, where are we today? Everyone likes some numbers. I thought I'd give you some numbers. Here's a few. Yes, millennial drinkers are drinking less. There was also a big piece that came out just a couple of days about Gen Z drinking less as well. Thank you. That's a sizable change. There's big stats coming out of IWSR last year, which I think, David, you've always kind of checked. This $11 billion statement is a chunky one, and I absolutely agree. It is just the beginning. And the fact that, again, that these kind of drinkers of non-alc are expected to grow quite dramatically out of all the spaces. This is the kind of one of the hottest categories in sophisticated drinks. So a little bit about why non-alc has continued to grow, kind of building on some of the themes that we've already touched on as a panel. Consumers are increasingly concerned about overall health and wellness. That is a trend that is not going away, and increasing about reaping the rewards of health benefits of not taking as much alcohol in, reducing alcohol intake, and subsequently sugar and calories. I think we've all now learned to just about count calories. No, some of us maybe. Yeah, okay. And this newfound focus on moderation, not abstinence. You're not drinking because you're trying to save money. You're not drinking because you've got many of the reasons that David talked about earlier. You've got a big meeting the following day. You're in the middle of a diet. You're pregnant. Your friend is pregnant across the way and you want some solidarity. For whatever those reasons, people are cutting back and cutting out bits of booze. It doesn't mean they're not drinking. It just means that they're choosing to drink non-alc sometimes. So I wanted to talk just a little bit towards the end of my presentation about the kind of non-alc landscape today. We at Ardent see the non-alc landscape evolving into these two very kind of interesting spaces. So you've got a load of brands that are much more focused on flavor, drinks focused on delivering that excellent flavor experience where that's the most important part of it. If you haven't tried Visitor, it's a really delicious 0.5% beer. If you haven't tried Non, check out Wine Alternatives and the future of that space. I think probably most people know what Gear is, but it's delicious and they're a great company. On the other side, you've got that kind of more functional piece. This is much more better for you drinks that are delivering a kind of, let's call them buzzy benefits, my colleagues' words. If you haven't tried any of these, Dessoir's an amazing brand coming out of California. Soul Brew, again, kind of a spirit alternative, really kind of playing around with the mushroom space. So these are the two big kind of spaces that we see the kind of category evolving into. To further, define that down in that kind of flavor space, there's a category of kind of what I call non-alc, which is very much the brands on the left-hand side. They're kind of real brilliant alternatives to alcohol. And then there's a kind of less defined space, but I guess more kind of like slightly more playing in the aperitif space, where you're kind of like building on brands like Figlio, which is from here in New York, Pathfinder, and Tennyson from down in Texas. So lots of really interesting spaces there in the flavor forward category. And then really, I guess one of the kind of, I guess this is the cutting edge, I guess maybe of non-alc, is this idea of function. Function and alcohol, alcohol can be quite dysfunctional at times. I think we've all had those moments. So these are a collection of different spaces where we see people really moving into functional. There's a more mindful, better for you drinks, the likes of Aplos, Rasasvada from here in New York again, Parch, if you haven't tried it, it's delicious. Then there's people giving you a real, I'm not sure if it's a functional buzz, but a real buzz in the cannabis space. If you haven't tried Artet, it's an amazing product. This is on the right is Pamos and their Mai Tai, again, delicious. And then this third space is this kind of far more adaptogenic, slightly nootropic, still very buzzy, Bomb Buzz, clues in the name, delicious, and Kin. I think most people in this room have probably tried it. If you haven't, go out and try it. So that's kind of how we see the kind of categories evolving. It will continue to evolve. If booze is at 5 p.m. in the afternoon and it's journeying consumers, alcohol is still at 5 past midnight. It is not even dawn yet. This is a category that's going to keep developing, keep growing, and I guarantee this presentation will be different next year. So can I just sense check in the room? Who has a non-alc brand at the moment? Okay, awesome. And who's thinking of starting a non-alc brand? Okay, few hands. Excellent. Okay, well, this last piece is for, I guess, more for the smaller group of hands, those thinking of starting, but I thought I'd just talk on my last slide about 5 keys to success if you are a founder of a non-alc brand. This is our view. First up, build a really distinctive brand. I can't tell you enough. You've seen how craft spirits has evolved into kind of 2.0 brand forward space. The quality of brand needs to be exceptional. Get really clear on your consumer proposition. What is that benefit? What do you do for a customer? Where do you fit in their lives? Make sure the liquid is the best you can be before you launch. You are only new once in this world when you launch a brand. And there are far too many people who go to a flavor house, try 3 different recipes, choose the best one, and fire it into the market and wonder why it doesn't succeed. I know from speaking to some of my fellow panelists that 500 versions of the same drink is how you get to good. And I implore you, Do not launch before it's amazing. We've got the entire bar trade to come and give you some very honest opinions. So go out and speak to bartenders and get them to play with it before you launch anything. Meet your customers. I think a lot of the time it's very easy to get other people to do your sampling, but I would implore you as a founder is to go and do your own samplings. It's not beneath you. It's where your public are. It's where the people will give you very honest feedback. It's not what your mum and dad are going to tell you. It's not what your colleagues are going to tell you. It might not be even what your investors are going to tell you. It will be a version of the truth. So go and do those samplings. Another really important one, D2C is only going to get you so far. It was an amazing gift to this particular space during COVID. And a lot of people had 80% of their sales D2C, 20% of their sales on and off trade. But that is changing, and very, very quickly it can become 2080. So I implore you, engage the community of the bar world and the off-premise, because they are the people that are real mavens and are going to tell people about your brand. And last but by no means least, believe. You will have naysayers who say they don't get it, but as the bartender in Echo Park told me, the world is changing. Thank you very much.